Welcome guys to the Thought Decoder channel. I'm coming to you with a live video today. We're going to talk quickly about whether the left or the political right are correct when it comes to Black lives. To start us off, let's take a look at this picture. So here's a picture of it says media outrage. Let me see if I can shrink this. Okay, that worked. So it says media outrage, media silence. Okay, so the claim this was posted on Facebook by one of my friends who's a Black Republican, and I wanted to take a look at it because it was thought-provoking, first of all. So there seems to be a comparison here. There's an analogy that tries to suggest that the media are hypocrites, especially what we can expect the left-leaning media to be hypocrites based off of this meme. So we have George Floyd at the top, claims that, oh, they went all crazy about, they were outraged about George Floyd's death. But then we have a little boy who was recently shot by a Black man, allegedly, is what my friends on Facebook, what a post said. So the claim is everyone was outraged by the death of George Floyd, but this little Caucasian boy, there is media silence, so that there's injustice here. All right. So whenever we want to critique or offer some type of evaluation of a view, the best thing to do is to understand and anticipate. This is what they teach you in philosophy, to anticipate objections. So the claim is that these two, the death of these two people are related. They are the same, and the media is outraged by one of them while silence about the death of the other. So that's the implicit claim. It's not really a claim, it's a meme, but it suggests an idea of hypocrisy, right? So when you're battling an opponent, when it comes to argumentation, you must know their methods, right? So this is why coaches watch other teams in the sense that they want to know what those teams are going to do. So when you're battling an opponent philosophically, you need to know what their objections will be. The media, it's easily to see what the media would say about something like this. They would say that although the death of this young boy is terrible, it is horrific, it is not the same as the death of George Floyd, because George Floyd's death represents a systemic problem that occurs. He is one example of a systemic problem. Okay, so they will respond that George Floyd's killing represents an instance of a problem, systemic problem within law enforcement officers' attitudes toward African Americans. Right, so maybe not necessarily within the law, or although they could include the law, but they could avoid the analogy and refute it by saying it's a false one. Okay, so they could continue that this George Floyd is in one instance of a systemic problem within law enforcement attitudes toward officers' attitudes toward African Americans, and who unjustly view blacks as more dangerous, more immoral than other races. Okay, so that may be their argument. So how So how can you show one isolated instance compared to a systemic problem? So that would be the claim. Thus, it's not. It's there's a disanalogy. So the analogy is false. This is their argument. So okay. So if one black guy kills a young white boy, then that's not the same as many black people being killed by police officers. Okay. Now, if the systemic issue is that the media wants to cover is the unbalanced death of blacks, and let me take a step back. What does the national media? Because no doubt that the death of that little boy probably was on the local news stations. But why didn't it make internet national media? So it seems to me that the national media, is interested in reporting on issues that have broad appeal, are political in nature, or reflect systemic issues with organizations, whether they be for-profit organizations, non-profit organizations, institutions, et cetera, educational institutions, et cetera. Those are the kind of stories that the national media reports on. So they report on famous people because that has broad appeal. Politics impact us largely through the policies, and systemic issues or what they report on. So, what would be a stronger argument? Philosophers like to steel man. I've heard the term steel man arguments. You make it even stronger. So here's a stronger argument against the left. Maybe this is one way to show that left-leaning media is has hypocrisy in it. So let's say that you are concerned, you're the left media of the left, and you're concerned about reporting issues about injustice against black people, right? Particularly injustice that leads to death. You can show that although George Floyd, you're not the left leaning. This is the Republican. A way to show hypocrisy in the left leaning media by Republicans. So you can say that, well, if you're concerned about the death of black people, we don't hear you saying anything about the number one killer of black people in America, and that is abortion. 22 million black people have been killed since Margaret Sanger purposed ethnic cleansing through her abortion program. She wanted to erase black people from the planet, so that making more abortion clinics available to black people is like giving suicidal people bullets for their guns. All right. So how can I both say that you matter and then help you to kill black lives? How can I say black lives matter and then promote organizations that take black life? Right. So that claim seems to me to be a stronger case because it's systemic, right? It's institutionalized killing. Black people are minorities, but they are overrepresented in abortions. Abortion clinics find their ways. They find themselves in areas where black women are more likely to become pregnant at an early age, to not want the baby, to have government assistance where they can afford to kill the baby. So that seems like a stronger argument to me, right? But notice what the left, what the Republican would be doing in that instance. To point out inconsistency is not to say that you have to do one or the other, but it's to say that you have to do both. So the Republican would be basically saying that you have not only have to fight against injustice for Black lives as it relates to law enforcement, but you have to fight against injustice towards Black lives as it relates to abortions, right? Now that's an interesting claim, right? Because it cuts both ways. Republicans are largely silent about the attitudes of many law enforcement officers towards Black people. And when those attitudes results, though, that prejudice or that racism, you can't really prove that, but when those attitudes result in the death of Black people, and over time, historically, we know that many racist cops have killed Black people, hung them, and done things that violate the law. Notwithstanding sentencing disparities between, white people and Black people, how Black people get more time. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about racism that leads to the death of Black people when in their encounters with law enforcement, police brutality, et cetera, et cetera. So Republicans have been largely silent about that. Just like Donald Trump is largely silent about, he's an example. He's largely silent. Now, he's very vocal about not defunding the police and that the police are heroes, but for consistency there, if this is what you care about, you have to care about both sides and not only one side. So the liberal leaning, the left-leaning media could tell the Republicans, the Democrats could respond to the Republicans, hey, that's a systemic problem. Now, what do you think the Republicans' response would be to that claim? Oh, well, it's only an instance, an isolated instance with one cop, right? So it's only an isolated instance with one cop, so it doesn't represent a systemic problem. Does that sound familiar? That is the very excuse or response that the left-leaning media would say about this one boy who was killed. They would say that it was an isolated instance. Yet, this Republican who posted this was outraged because of this little boy's death. Yet those same Republicans are now outraged by the death of George Floyd, although they would claim that that's an isolated instance as well. So now the Democrats claim to care about the death of Blacks at the hands of systemic causes. Yet they don't care about the deaths of Blacks who are literally innocent and have no voice to speak out for themselves because babies they can't talk, can't say, hey, I want to live. So what's interesting in relation to this is a recent comment by Kanye West. He said, I talked about how I cried because reflecting on the fact that I almost aborted my daughter. He says, and they called me crazy. He said, and they called me crazy. He said, I think that means that shows that the world is crazy, right? The people on the political scale. So, as you know, on this channel, I'm a Christian. I want to empower Christians to state their faith, to articulate that faith, to defend that faith. And I do that by creating these videos, and I do it by teaching logic and basically teaching the methodology behind what apologists do. So apologists have a tool set, and most of the time when we look at apologetics, we see what they've created with those tools, but without knowing those tools. So we take what they created and we share that around. But sometimes what they created doesn't fit the context of what we're showing around, and we're out on our own. So my belief is that we need to empower Christians to think logically by teaching logic and teaching analysis and teaching systematic theology, how to put doctrines, etc., together in a basic and a simple way. I try to be simple, but I don't really think I'm simple. I kind of tend to complicate things, but that's what we do here. So I hope I've shown how both the left and the right are wrong about Black lives. I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative. I don't consider myself Republican because Republicans seem to, like I've said, the Black Republicans who I know, they seem to be more committed to the party than to their Christian values. And this is shown when they can't admit injustice, right? Injustice that is condemned and decried by the left media, lest the left imply that since they are wrong about the injustice there, then they are wrong about all their other values and policies. But I don't think that should be. I think you should be able to call out injustice wherever you see it. I'm a swing voter. I'm an independent. I'm going to vote for the person who I think aligns with my Christian values the most. And I'm not going to have allegiance to a political party to where when I see wrong, I can't call it out. That's wrong. Like the person who killed George Floyd and put his knee on his neck for 8 minutes, that is horrible. That is wrong. I mean, he told them several times that he couldn't breathe. Yes, he was wrong for George Floyd was wrong for resisting his arrest, but should that have led to his death? Like I've heard, they said the white kid who shot up all those black people, they took him out for McDonald's. Then before they took him to jail, and that's like, but George Floyd loses his life because he's telling them he's claustrophobic. He doesn't want, he'll lay on the ground, but then they put their knees on the ground after he volunteered to lay on the ground, and they put their knees on his neck, and the other officers had him on his back, and he was saying he couldn't breathe, and he was claustrophobic, etc., etc. What they should have done was taken him to a hospital and just had the cops there. And once they checked him out and made sure he was physically all right, then just rolled his behind right on to jail if they wanted to arrest him. So it's just some inconsistencies that I see on both sides. And I think as a philosopher, this is the brilliance and the beauty of philosophy to me, because as a philosopher, I've been able to just be objective, right? I can, thank God I can critique arguments that theists give for the existence of God and say that's a horrible argument, right? Just because a Christian gives an argument, I'm a Christian, that doesn't mean that argument is good. So just because I'm a Christian and I'm a Republican, that doesn't mean I should be able to call out injustice where I see it and then kind of be silent about it. The only reason I can see you being silent about it if you deny that it happened, right? So now you can't speak on it, because if you speak on it, then you're afraid they're going to point out that look, you denied that there was a problem here, and look at this problem. So you were wrong. Admit you were wrong. So they don't want to admit they were wrong. So they don't really say. If they're in the interview, they say, oh yeah, that was a bad thing. But it was an isolated instance. So it goes back to that. And then the Republicans say, look at this, the white kid who was killed by a black man. There's no media outrage. Well, that was an isolated instance, right? So it's not systemic. So both sides use the same reasoning. And I wanted to show you why Both are wrong about Black lives. You should care. If you're a Christian, you should care about injustice everywhere, right? Everywhere, everywhere. Uh, we believe that God is going to give people justice and on Judgment Day, right? So we believe in a heaven and a hell because we believe in justice as human beings. If you didn't believe in justice and I stole your phone, what are you gonna do? You're gonna press charges? Do you think that you think I just should expect you to forgive me? Or if I kill your kids, or somebody blows up your house, do you think they should just expect you to forgive them? Right? There's a wrong that's been done, and that wrong has to be repaid. We believe in justice in the law, so why don't we believe in justice in life and in the decisions and choices that we make that are not against the law, but yet are still wrong? Still needs to be justice, right? So Christians should care about injustice, and wherever we see it, right? Unfairness, wherever we see it. And I'm kind of getting off the topic here, but I'm feeling good, so I'll just continue. So why do I care? Why do I lean? I lean towards the Republican Party. Most likely, I'm voting for Donald Trump, and I believe I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Now, if you Black, you may be saying, or if you just in that whole Democratic mindset, Democrat mindset, you may be thinking, oh, but Donald Trump is a racist. Well, why is he a racist? Did you hear the things he said about Black people? What did he say? My Black over there. Okay, that sounds horrible. I'm not gonna lie. He's racially insensitive is what I would call it. He lacks cultural diversity or cultural sensitivity. It was some class in college where they had some seminars about cultural sensitivity or something like that. Donald Trump is definitely not sensitive to the concerns and perspectives of people of other cultures as it relates to their race and how they perceive him as being a racist. However, you can say the same thing about Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden said that if you're not Black, if you don't vote for him, you're not Black, and that Latinos are more diverse in their thought and thinking and policies than Black people, because you can go in different places and Latinos or some Latinos are for building the wall over here and over there. They're not for immigrate. They're for immigration, et cetera, et cetera. Well, doesn't that depend on who you're talking to, right? Because I know some Blacks who want the wall, right? I know some Democrats. I know a lot of Democrat ministers and Christians who largely agree with Republican conservative values, but they don't know that they're Republicans, right? They just don't know because they're not. They look at the social programming as being important, like, right, Jesus taught to show mercy to people, et cetera, right? But then the question is, did he teach that the government should do that, or that you should do that as an individual, or right, that you should be the type of person that shows mercy to individuals who can't afford things, the poor, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a debate, but they see the government as being, Democrat Party as being more virtuous because they want to do things to help others in that way. And then the Republican Party is more kind of like shiesty, et cetera, et cetera. But me, I lean towards the Republican side specifically because I am pro-Black. If you are a white person, great, I'm pro you too. But as a Black male, I understand personally the suffering of Black people, and not at the hands of anyone else, of white people, but at the hands of circumstance, right? As historically probably not having their parents and discrimination, civil rights and stuff. I see that the past has effects on the present. So in that sense, I am I'm not like the Republicans who just think that, if something happened in the past, then today it shouldn't affect us today, etc. But we have family situations, we have health situations, hereditary conditions within our health, diabetes, sugar, etc. All these diseases that are more prevalent in the Black community, etc. Wealth situations, economically, we lack wealth, and I think that has historical explanations having to do with redlining, because one of the most valuable things a person can own in America is the house. That's one way to build wealth, through ownership. And black people, we tend not to own a lot of things. So as I begin to evolve in my understanding and desire to have wealth and not to struggle, and to work smart and not hard, not to work on a job for little wage, I began to think more entrepreneurially, and began to see that the people who think that way are the typically conservatives, and Republicans. And then I began to think about effectiveness, and the wisdom of teaching a man to fish comparing to giving him a fish. It's easy to give you a fish. It's easy to give somebody $500 a month to live off of, and that person says, "Oh, thank you," while they go to their little shack. But then this person is living in a mansion, right? Eating chocolate ice cream, Nancy Pelosi. But anyway, Nancy Pelosi, I'm sorry. Uh, but I think so. What I'm saying is, I think that the real way to help is not through handouts. Not that handouts are needed. I think handouts are needed temporarily for some people. Now, there are nuances, because what are you going to do about people with mental disabilities? Are you just going to not give them health care, and they don't know where they are, and they can't get a job, et cetera, and may not have any family, et cetera? So what are you going to do about those people? Should you rely on just the goodwill of the citizens to take care of them? And even though citizens may not be near them or have interaction with them, and the ones who do care, it will be their choice. And what if no one chooses to help those individuals? So there are fine lines. So I'm not like, oh, handouts are a bad thing, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, thinking about hypocrisy, America, Americans purchase slaves, right? That's the biggest handout that you can get, is free labor, right? You're not out there working in the field. It's somebody else, and you're forcing them to work. You're not paying them, so they literally handed you out a generation of wealth in America, and pretty much built America, African American. So I don't think this whole handout approach is consistent, especially when Americans were giving away acres and acres of land to people who were willing to go out and to farm it and to develop it. They were giving them loans, etc. Uh, and I think the same thing should be done for African Americans. Reparations to me doesn't look like a check, a monthly check, but it looks like providing me with the resources that I need to be successful as I want to be. So if I want to be wealthy and I'm trying to start a business and I'm African American, I shouldn't have a more difficult time getting a loan. It should be easier for me to get a loan. I should have a better education. I should have a consultant. I should have somebody who's working with me and helping me to tell me which decisions to make. Someone to help me build, to start a business, and to take care of my family, how to move to the next level. I think that's teaching us, right? If you don't want to give us handouts, take all the money you give them for Section 8, which is comparatively is a little of for their individual, and give them an education if they want it, But the problem is, it's not even available. If you want it, you have to go out and get it yourself. Me, for example, I'm a black man. I did both of my grandfathers weren't in my life, so there's no male leadership on both sides of my family. It's my mother's father, neither my dad's father. My dad was a ex felon. My mom was a single parent. She taught at a daycare, made $700 a month, and we stayed in a low income poor area. Went to public school, DISD, went to college, went to high school, et cetera, et cetera. I had nobody around me, don't know anyone with a business, right? To this day, like a business where that they're making. I know people who do have may have side other ways of making money, but I don't know people who have full blown businesses. Now I take that back. I do know people with a couple of people with their own businesses, and they're white. It's not the it's the white people, etc. I don't know why I said etc. But so my thing is that's kind of my view. It's kind of like a mixture of both parties, but it's not black and white. It's not simple, right? You can't just say put me in a box and say I'm a Republican. No, I'm in many ways I'm not. You can't just say I'm not a Democrat because I want to vote for Trump, because in many ways I am a Democrat. I do care about the circumstances of people's lives and helping them, etc. But questions of how to do that, and whether you should just give them things or whether you should empower them to be able to do it for themselves. Now that's what I want. I don't like asking for people for things, because if I ask you and you don't give it to me, I'm still worse off than if I hadn't asked you at all, but just with the extra disappointment of you having had the opportunity to tell me no, and have that power over me. So I want my own things, et cetera, et cetera. So that's that. Thank you guys for listening and watching. I hope this actually went to YouTube and didn't mess up. So today this has been a short talk about why the left and the political right are wrong. The political left and the right are wrong about Black lives. Thank you.